Right now, there are luxury Japanese SUVs sitting on the used market for way less than they should be. Most buyers still have not caught on, but that will not last forever. These are 7 depreciated luxury Japanese SUVs you should buy before everyone else figures it out. Personally, I was impressed by the first 2, so stick around to check it out. Let's begin. Number 7. Lexus LX 570. A lot of luxury SUVs feel expensive when they are new and risky when they get old. The Lexus LX 570 is one of the few that still makes sense after the big depreciation hit because the expensive part of owning it is usually the size of the vehicle, not some weak drivetrain waiting to punish you. That is a huge difference. Start with what this thing actually is. A 5.7-liter naturally aspirated V8, 383 horsepower, 403 lb-ft of torque, full-time 4-wheel drive, an 8-speed automatic, and 7,000 pounds of towing capacity in a body-on-frame luxury SUV. That matters because you are not buying some fragile luxury crossover pretending to be rugged. You are buying a big, heavy Japanese flagship built to do real SUV work while still giving you Lexus comfort, a quiet cabin, and the kind of road trip feel people normally associate with much newer vehicles. And this is why I keep bringing it up to people who want a used luxury SUV without a European ownership story. On the LX 570, the bills I tend to see are big SUV bills. Brakes, tires, suspension pieces, cooling system work, maybe a height control or wear item-related invoice as the miles climb. Those are not small numbers, but they are honest numbers. A few weeks ago, I priced one for a client that needed front brakes, tires, and suspension work. The estimate cleared €2,000 quickly. But nobody was standing there worried about a weak gearbox, a stressed turbo engine, or some known disaster that makes the whole vehicle feel like a trap. That is what separates this thing from most depreciated luxury SUVs. The money usually goes into maintaining something fundamentally strong, and the long-life reputation backs that up. The LX 570 scores very strongly for reliability and ranks at the top of luxury 3-row SUVs in long-term durability analysis, with nearly half of them statistically making it to 200,000 miles. In this class, that is massive. It also helps that the LX 570 still gives you things people actually care about when they buy a luxury SUV used: real cabin presence, proper towing ability, serious off-road hardware, and a drivetrain that does not feel overcomplicated for the sake of marketing. So yes, it is expensive to feed, expensive to tire, and never cheap when something heavy wears out. But if someone wants a depreciated luxury Japanese SUV before the market fully wakes up to what it is, this is exactly the kind of truck I would point at first. Number 6. Acura MDX. If you want the simplest explanation for why the Acura MDX belongs this high, it is this. It gives people the luxury SUV experience they think they are buying from other brands, but usually without the same level of long-term punishment. And that matters a lot now, because the used market has already knocked a huge chunk off the original price. The sweet spot on these is easy to understand. You get 3 rows, a strong V6, a cabin that still feels expensive enough years later, and a vehicle that does not look outdated the minute it leaves warranty. For a lot of buyers, that already checks the right boxes. But the bigger reason the MDX works in this kind of video is what happens after the purchase. These do not usually show up as the kind of SUV where one giant repair wipes out the logic of buying it. What I see more often is normal premium brand aging, front suspension work, brake jobs that cost more than a Honda but still stay sane, tires that are not cheap, maybe a spool valve leak, maybe a control arm job, maybe a water pump service or some deferred maintenance the previous owner pushed back. Those are real bills, but they are not deal-killing bills if the vehicle was bought right. That is the part buyers miss. A used MDX often sits thousands below what an equivalent Lexus SUV costs, but it still gives you a very usable version of Japanese luxury. Decent power, good daily comfort, strong resale logic compared with most luxury brands, and a parts and service story that is far less scary than what people expect from a 3-row premium SUV. A customer came in not long ago cross-shopping a used MDX against a German alternative with similar mileage. The German truck looked flashier. The Acura looked like the safer choice. When we went through the likely ownership path over the next few years, the answer was obvious. On the Acura, I was talking about brakes, tires, fluids, maybe suspension refresh work. On the other SUV, I was talking about possible air suspension, cooling system headaches, and electronics. That is exactly why the MDX lands here. It is not perfect. Some older ones had transmission reputations that buyers should know about, and some specific engine and oil consumption stories matter depending on generation. But as a full ownership package, the MDX makes too much sense to ignore. It is already depreciated enough to look attractive, still premium enough to feel like a step up, and stable enough mechanically that smart buyers can get into one before the market fully starts treating them like the bargain they are. Number 5. Acura RDX. A lot of people shopping used luxury SUVs do the same thing. They cross-shop a BMW X3, an Audi Q5, a Lexus NX, and then skip right past the Acura RDX because it feels less flashy. That is exactly why the RDX belongs on this list. It does not get hunted the way the Lexus does, and that keeps the used prices softer than they should be. Carriage estimates about 38% depreciation after 5 years on the RDX, which is enough of a drop to make it seriously interesting once it lands in the right used price window. What makes the RDX good is that it gives you the part buyers actually use every day: a quiet cabin, strong passing power, good front seat comfort, a premium feel, and enough tech that it does not feel old too quickly. On the newer generation, you are getting a 272 horsepower 2.0 turbo, 10-speed automatic, available SHAWD, and up to 1,500 pounds of towing. That is a healthy spec sheet for a compact luxury SUV that now trades hands for far less than it did new. More importantly, this is one of the few luxury compact SUVs where the ownership story usually stays under control. RepairPal puts the RDX at $497 a year on average and rates it 4.5 out of 5, ranking it first out of 11 luxury compact SUVs. That fits what I like about it. These usually come in for normal premium crossover stuff: brakes, tires, fluids, maybe suspension wear as the miles build, maybe a deferred maintenance catch-up if the previous owner was lazy. That is a much better conversation than sitting across from someone and explaining why their used luxury SUV suddenly needs the kind of repair that makes the whole purchase feel stupid. A few months back, I had a client looking at a used RDX because he wanted something nicer than a CR-V but did not want a European service history following him around for the next 5 years. That is the sweet spot for this vehicle. It still feels like a step up. It still has enough badge value to satisfy the buyer. But the underlying ownership math is much calmer than people expect from a luxury SUV. And that is what makes the RDX such a smart buy right now. It has already depreciated enough to feel attainable, but not enough people treat it like the obvious answer yet. Once more buyers realize they can get that level of comfort and performance without the usual luxury brand punishment, the really good used ones are not going to feel hidden for much longer. Number 4. Lexus NX 300h. The Lexus NX 300h is one of those SUVs people ignore for the wrong reason. They look at it, see a compact luxury hybrid, and assume it is just the softer, less interesting option in the Lexus range. That is exactly why it works so well as a used buy. It does not get chased the way bigger Lexus SUVs do. It does not attract the same attention as German compact luxury crossovers, and that leaves space for smart buyers to get into one before the market fully wakes up. What makes this one strong is not one dramatic thing. It is the combination. Hybrid fuel economy that still makes sense years later. Lexus fit and finish that ages better than a lot of people expect. A cabin that still feels expensive enough for a used luxury SUV buyer. And most importantly, a type of ownership story that usually stays boring. In this segment, boring is exactly what you want. The NX 300h gives you a 2.5-liter hybrid powertrain, standard all-wheel drive in a lot of markets, and fuel economy that can save owners a serious amount over time compared with thirsty luxury crossovers that looked more exciting on day one. That matters because depreciation is only half the story. If someone buys a used luxury SUV and then keeps feeding it premium fuel while paying for more complicated repairs, the deal disappears fast. The NX 300h avoids a lot of that pain, and this is where I see the value in the real world. Owners usually are not dragging these in with the kind of powertrain panic you get from weaker brands. What you are more likely to see is normal used car stuff. Tires, brakes, a battery eventually, maybe suspension wear once the mileage stacks up, maybe a water pump or cooling-related bill later. That is a much easier ownership conversation than explaining why a used luxury SUV just turned into a transmission gamble or a turbo engine experiment. It also sits in a very good spot in the market. A lot of buyers want something nicer than a Ray V4 or CR-V, but they do not want to jump straight into the maintenance profile of a European luxury SUV. The NX 300h answers that perfectly. It feels premium enough, it looks expensive enough, and it gives people the hybrid angle without forcing them into something ugly or appliance-like. That is why this one belongs here. It has already depreciated enough to start looking appealing, it still has Lexus credibility behind it, and it solves more ownership problems than it creates. For someone who wants a luxury Japanese SUV that can quietly make financial sense for years, this is one of the easiest recommendations on the list. Number 3. Lexus RX 350. There is a reason so many people end up in an RX 350 after getting burned by something flashier. This is the SUV buyers move into when they stop caring about showroom drama and start caring about what the car is like at 120,000, 150,000, or 200,000 miles. And that is exactly why it belongs on this list. It has already taken enough depreciation to become attainable, but it still has one of the cleanest ownership stories in the luxury SUV world. The formula is simple, and that is part of the appeal. On many of the strongest years, you are getting a naturally aspirated 3.5-liter V6, smooth automatic transmission, quiet cabin, strong resale logic, and the kind of build quality that ages better than most people expect from a vehicle that spent its early life as a family hauler. Lexus has long positioned the RX around comfort, refinement, and low-stress ownership, and in the used market that pays off because the SUV rarely feels fragile in the way a lot of luxury competitors do. What makes the RX 350 especially good for this type of video is how predictable the problems usually are. Owners are generally dealing with the sort of things that make sense on an aging premium SUV. Brakes, tires, struts, control arms, wheel bearings, cooling system items, and the occasional oil seep. Those are not free, but they are understandable. Even a water pump job on an RX 350 is usually a known, manageable repair path, not the kind of failure that suddenly makes the whole vehicle feel like a mistake. RepairPal's reliability profile on the RX 350 lines up with that pattern, showing above-average reliability for the segment and annual repair costs that stay comparatively controlled for a luxury mid-size SUV. I also like the RX 350 here because it gives buyers something a lot of depreciated luxury vehicles do not: confidence for normal life. School runs, motorway trips, airport drives, rough weather, family use, years of sitting outside, and still a lot of them keep feeling solid. A client I spoke with recently was looking at an older RX 350 and a similarly priced European luxury SUV. The Lexus needed tires, front brakes, and one suspension-related job. The other SUV looked more exciting on paper, but the ownership risk was obviously worse. That is where the RX keeps winning. And that is the real value of this thing. The market already discounted it from its new price, but it still behaves like a vehicle built to last rather than a vehicle built to impress for 3 years and then become someone else's problem. Number 2. Infiniti QX80. The QX80 is the kind of SUV people laugh at when it is new and then start taking seriously once the depreciation gets violent. That is exactly why it belongs on this list. Brand new, it sits in a price bracket where most buyers would rather just say, "I'll get the Lexus." Used, it becomes a very different conversation. Because once this thing loses a huge chunk of its original value, you are suddenly looking at a full-size Japanese luxury SUV with a 5.6-liter V8 around 400 horsepower and up to 8,500 pounds of towing capacity for a price that starts looking a lot more interesting. And the important thing here is that the QX80 is not just a cheap way into a big luxury badge. It is actually one of the more defensible full-size luxury SUVs once you stop staring at the sticker and start thinking about what ownership looks like after 100,000 miles. RepairPal rates it 3.5 out of 5 for reliability, with an average annual repair cost of about $718, which is better than the average they track for luxury full-size SUVs. That matters, because this is not one of those trucks where the size automatically means the whole ownership story is doomed. What I like about the QX80 is that the bills usually make sense for what the vehicle actually is. Big tires, big brakes, big suspension parts, real fuel bills. This is not a cheap SUV to run, but it usually behaves like a heavy body-on-frame luxury truck rather than some overcomplicated disaster. A few months ago, I priced one for a client that needed front brakes, tires, and a suspension refresh. The estimate was well over €2,000, which sounds painful until you remember you are maintaining a massive V8 luxury SUV, not a compact crossover pretending to be premium. That is the real angle with this truck. You are buying size, towing, road presence, and V8 simplicity at a point in the market where the depreciation has already done a lot of the damage for you. The QX80 is never going to be the cheapest thing to fuel or insure, and nobody sensible should pretend otherwise. But compared with other full-size luxury SUVs that lose value fast and then bury owners in uglier repair stories, this one starts making a lot more sense than people expect once the used price gets low enough. Number 1. Infiniti QX60. The QX60 is the one on this list that makes the most people suspicious, and honestly, that is part of why it still belongs here. Because when a luxury Japanese SUV gets a reputation hit, the market usually overreacts hard. That is exactly what happened here. The used prices on these dropped enough that buyers who know what they are looking at can get a lot of SUV for the money, especially compared with what a similar Lexus RXL, Acura MDX, or newer 3-row crossover can still cost. Carriage estimates the QX60 loses about 63% of its value over 5 years, which is one of the steepest drops in this whole group. And that is the whole angle with this vehicle. It is not here because it is the most bulletproof. It is here because the depreciation has already done so much damage that the value proposition changes completely. You're getting a quiet cabin, strong second-row comfort, easy family use, upscale materials, and a shape that still looks expensive enough in traffic. On paper, it gives a buyer almost everything they want from a used luxury family SUV. Now, for the reason it sits this low on the list and not higher, the CVT history. That is the shadow hanging over the QX60, and ignoring it would be stupid. Nissan extended warranty coverage on certain CVT-equipped vehicles in related model lines, and owner concern around CVT durability has been part of the brand story for years. When a QX60 develops shuddering, hesitation, overheating, or the classic high-rev/no progress feeling, the repair path can get ugly fast. A transmission replacement can easily run into the €4,500 to €6,500 range, depending on the shop and parts route. That said, the reason I still like it for this video is simple. If someone buys carefully, the savings up front can be massive. Last month, I spoke to a buyer looking at a 2019 QX60 that was roughly €6,000 to €8,000 cheaper than the MDX he originally wanted with similar age and mileage. That is a huge gap. If the service history is clean, the transmission behavior is right, and the buyer understands exactly what he is getting into, that discount matters. So this one is not a blind recommendation. It is a strategic one. The QX60 has been hit so hard by depreciation and reputation that the market is practically daring informed buyers to take advantage of it. And sometimes, before the wider market calms down and starts separating the good examples from the bad ones, that is exactly where the opportunity is.